3 years into our marriage, I remained an unwed maiden. At the banquet, when I was mocked, Su Yuanheng merely watched coldly. Yet when his widow Qingmei was ridiculed, he stood up to defend her. I pretended not to care, devoting myself to playing the role of his wife. Later, he ascended the throne. His first act was to confiscate my father's estate and exile my family. He personally forced me to drink poison wine, ending my life on the very day he crowned his childhood sweetheart as empress. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Su Yuanheng before me, dressed in wedding robes. I froze, then flung the red silk sash from my hand. I refused to marry. Every person present was stunned by my words. After all, in their eyes, this marriage between Su Yuanheng and me was one I had begged for. No one could have imagined that at this final moment, I would back out. Su Yuanheng's brows furrowed deeply, his gaze filled with utter bewilderment. Jiang Yutong, what are you up to now? I flung the heavy phoenix crown from my head, sending the onlookers scrambling to grab it. Nothing. I just suddenly don't want to marry you anymore. Do you realize you're defying an imperial decree? I know. I understand the consequences better than anyone. But Su Yuanheng, I'd rather face those consequences than marry you. This marriage was decreed by the Grand Empress Dowager. By reneging on the wedding day, I was slapping her in the face. But I'd rather be exiled than plunge my family into peril once more. Su Yuanheng raised an eyebrow. Fine. Just don't regret it. I will never regret it. With those words, I led the servants who had followed me from home, along with the entire street's worth of dowry, back to my residence in a grand procession. Seeing me arrive, father and mother were stunned. They rushed forward, but before they could ask anything, tears streamed down my face. Father, mother, I don't want to marry Su Yuanheng. I threw myself into their arms, clinging tightly to this feeling of being lost and found again. What's wrong? Did Su Yuanheng bully you again? I shook my head. It's not him. I don't want to marry him. I've realized I won't marry someone who doesn't love me. Father and mother exchanged a glance, sighed, then held me close. Very well. If you won't marry him, so be it. There are plenty of better suitors. As for the Empress Dowager, we'll find a way. No need, father and mother. I'll personally explain everything to the Empress Dowager. News of my decision quickly reached the Empress Dowager, who summoned both Su Yuanheng and me to the palace. Sitting in the sedan chair, I knew I was about to face the Empress Dowager, yet I felt not a shred of fear. Because whenever I closed my eyes, I could vividly feel the stabbing pain spreading through my body after drinking that poison wine, lasting for hours, until I finally died a miserable death in that cold dungeon. No one even came to collect my body. The moment I stepped into the hall, a teacup flew through the air, striking my head with pinpoint accuracy. Ignoring the blood trickling down my forehead, I knelt beside Su Yuanheng, who was already kneeling before the Empress Dowager. It was I who suddenly reneged on the betrothal. If the Empress Dowager wishes to punish someone, punish me alone. The Empress Dowager sneered coldly, I see you're trying to drive me to my death. I granted this marriage out of respect for your maternal grandfather. And now? You're openly slapping my face. It is my fault. I never knew the fourth prince's true love was not me. Now that I know, I refuse to be the one who breaks up a loving couple. This marriage wasn't something I begged for alone. If Su Yuanheng doesn't want it, no amount of my fussing can force him. Su Yuanheng isn't favored among the princes, nor does he have a powerful family backing him. His agreement to marry me stemmed solely from my family's influence, which could bolster his standing in court. The Empress Dowager's gaze settled on Su Yuanheng. Oh. How is it that I was unaware? I sneered inwardly. As if she could have known. In my previous life, it wasn't until our wedding day that I discovered he had a childhood sweetheart he deeply loved. He had guarded his chastity for her, sitting outside the bridal chamber all night, staring at her earrings. For 3 years after that, Su Yuanheng never set foot in my room. But this time, I absolutely refused to be used by Su Yuanheng again. Su Yuanheng didn't know how I'd learned of this matter. Though startled, he still feigned composure. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop pretending. Years ago, your childhood sweetheart was exiled to Suzhou due to her family's disgrace. Yet these past years, you've kept in constant correspondence. Those letters are stored on the desk in his study. If Her Majesty the Empress Dowager doubts me, she may send someone to verify it. Only when I mentioned this did Su Yuanheng's expression shift. The Empress Dowager instantly understood. She waved me away, leaving Su Yuanheng behind. But as soon as I stepped outside the palace gates, Su Yuanheng caught up. Jiang Yutong, how did you find out about those letters? And why have you suddenly changed so much? Are you playing some new trick? In Su Yuanheng's eyes, did everything I did seem like an attempt to grab his attention? I looked at him. From now on, I won't follow you anymore. There's nothing between us. He grabbed my wrist. Are you sure? I'm sure. With that, I shook off his hand and walked away without looking back. After making things clear with Su Yuanheng, we never met again. News of the broken engagement spread throughout the capital within a day. Through their embellishments, it somehow became that Su Yuanheng would rather defy the imperial decree than marry me. I became the laughingstock of the capital's citizens. But I didn't care. Compared to becoming Su Yuanheng's wife, being a laughingstock was insignificant. I stayed in the mansion, amusing myself by feeding birds and fish, a life of pure contentment. Until one day, while out sightseeing beyond the city walls, I stumbled upon a man lying wounded on the road. After bringing him back to the mansion and nursing him for several days, he finally regained consciousness. I watched the man lying in bed, his eyes fixed on me without blinking. I approached, raised my hand, and was just about to check his wounds. But the moment my hand neared him, he violently slapped it away. Ouch! I saved your life, and this is how you repay your savior. Only then did the man realize what he'd done. He scrambled up from the bed. I'm sorry. I rolled my eyes and waved him off. Forget it. Since you just woke up, I won't hold it against you. I helped him back onto the bed and sat down on a nearby stool. I asked curiously, what happened to you? How did you get so badly injured? Only now did I learn the man I'd rescued was named Zhou Ili. He was a soldier from the military camp, sent on a mission by his superiors. But because his teammate wanted to steal his credit, he pushed Zhou Ili off a cliff when he wasn't paying attention. How outrageous! I'll go settle this for you right now. Wait. I have a token related to the mission. Just deliver this message for me. Zhou Ili handed me a wrapped package. I delivered it to the military camp as he instructed. Soon after, soldiers came to take him away. But before he left, he gave me the jade pendant he wore. Farewell. Watching his retreating figure, something felt off. He didn't seem like just an ordinary soldier. Was I overthinking it? No sooner had Zhou Ili left than I received an invitation from the Chancellor's daughter's residence. It was likely just a banquet attended by young nobles and ladies. With nothing better to do, I accepted. Little did I expect that at this gathering, I would encounter Su Yuanheng and his childhood sweetheart. The woman arrived in full regalia, surrounded by other young ladies. Oh, so that's why I was suddenly invited to this party? Turns out they just wanted to watch the show. I rolled my eyes. I should never have agreed to attend this gathering. Oh, the disgraced Miss Jiang has arrived. The moment those words left her mouth, a wave of mocking laughter rippled through the crowd. Not wanting to make a fool of myself, I simply walked over to the garden pavilion. Few people were here. I stood by the pond, staring down at the fish swimming below. Suddenly, a voice came from behind me. I turned to look. It was Lu Hao, Su Yuanheng's childhood sweetheart. She wore elaborate attire, yet seemed decidedly out of place. You're Miss Jiang, the one whose engagement to Yuanheng was broken off? She scrutinized me from head to toe. Then, with absolute certainty, she declared, Yuanheng would never fancy a woman like you. I advise you to give up on him now. How can you be so sure? Because I know him. We grew up together. Yuanheng despises women like you, those who spend their days scheming and jealousy-mongering in the inner quarters. I'm different. Though my family has fallen, I've helped the magistrate solve cases since childhood. I've cracked more cases than you've read books. Her current arrogance actually reminded me of my past life. In my previous life, I was invited to the wedding banquet of the Chancellor's daughter. Upon arriving, I discovered Lu Hao was also present. She should have been observing mourning for her late husband, yet she appeared at the grand wedding banquet dressed in the most fashionable attire of the time. I froze for a moment before taking a seat beside Su Yuanheng. But no sooner had I sat down than the conversation turned to me. On our wedding night, Su Yuanheng left me alone in the bridal chamber. And in the 3 years since our marriage, he had never once set foot in my room. Mockery reached my ears, growing louder and louder. I could only cast a pleading glance at Su Yuanheng, but he pretended not to see. I tried to console myself, telling myself it was simply Su Yuanheng's nature. He never cared about such matters, so it was only natural he wouldn't speak for me. But just as I'd found an excuse for him in my heart, Su Yuanheng's action slapped me in the face. Some busybody deliberately provoked Lu Hao. Miss Lu Hao, why are you here? Shouldn't you be observing mourning for your late husband instead of attending this banquet? It seems you're not grieving at all. Her husband died less than a year after their marriage. I heard she had a questionable relationship with the fourth prince before the wedding. Could it be she chose to silence him by murder? Lu Hao's face darkened as they publicly humiliated her. Suddenly, Su Yuanheng overturned the table before him and shielded Lu Hao behind him. I've always considered Lu Hao a friend. If any of you continue to utter such words in my presence, I won't be polite. With that, Su Yuanheng took Lu Hao and left, leaving me alone at the banquet. Ignoring the gawking stares of the crowd, my heart felt bitterly sour. So it wasn't indifference after all, it was simply that the person being mocked wasn't someone he cared about. After the banquet ended, on the way back to the mansion, I encountered Lu Hao leaving. She had shed her earlier pitiful demeanor, her gaze now brimming with defiance as she looked at me. So what if you're his wife? He's always only ever liked me. As she spoke, she reached out and grabbed my hand. I impatiently shook her off, but she stumbled backward, crashing heavily to the ground. This entire scene was witnessed by Su Yuanheng. No matter how I tried to explain, Su Yuanheng refused to believe me. His disdain for me only deepened. But if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't fall for her tricks so easily. Only you would treat Su Yuanheng like a treasure. At best, you're just picking up the scraps I, Jiang Yutang, discarded. You. Lu Hao grabbed my hand, and I instinctively flung it away. Unexpectedly, her foot slipped, and she toppled backward toward the pond. She fell into the pond, dragging me down with her. Icy water spread over my entire body. I struggled desperately. Help! Someone's drowning. Plop. Someone jumped in. It was Su Yuanheng. As he drew closer, my survival instinct made me reach out instinctively. Who would have thought he swam right past me, hauling Lu Hao out of the pool? My eyelids grew heavier and heavier. I was on the verge of suffocating. Just then, a strong arm suddenly wrapped around my waist. Popping up to the surface, I gasped for air. Suddenly, a cloak was draped over my shoulders. Lifting my head, I saw Zhou Yili's anxious face. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I shook my head. I noticed Su Yuanheng nearby. He held Lu Hao, who had fallen into the water, in his arms, his face filled with worry. Only after confirming Lu Hao was unharmed did he turn his gaze toward me. I averted my eyes, refusing to meet his. Zhou Yili, could you please take me back to the mansion? All right. Zhou Yili scooped me up horizontally and carried me out of the estate. Suddenly remembering something, I lifted my head and asked. By the way, how did you end up here? This banquet was exclusively for young nobles and their daughters. Logically, as a soldier stationed at the barracks, Zhou Yili shouldn't have been qualified to attend. I was assigned to guard the event today. His eyes fluttered rapidly as he spoke, looking distinctly unnatural. Just as I was about to ask what was wrong, I realized I was soaking wet, clad only in a cloak draped over me as he held me in his arms. A hint of intimacy began to rise. Both of us fell silent, unspoken understanding between us. After Zhou Yili escorted me into the sedan chair, he departed. After all, he couldn't very well carry me back to the mansion in broad daylight. News of the drowning had already spread throughout the capital before the banquet ended. Everyone claimed I pushed Lu Hao into the water out of jealousy. Lu Hao was portrayed as pitiful, while I was depicted as utterly vicious. Fine. My already foul reputation just grew even more foul. All the young masters from prominent families avoided Miss Jiang like the plague, terrified of being associated with her. Flood struck elsewhere, and Su Yuanheng earned merit for his relief efforts. The emperor specially hosted a celebratory banquet in his honor. Su Yuanheng had reached marriageable age. Thus, the emperor invited young ladies from noble families to attend, though his true intent was to arrange a marriage for Su Yuanheng. At the banquet, the empress smiled. Yuanheng has reached marriageable age. Today is the perfect occasion to settle his marriage. Your father and I have discussed it. The chancellor's daughter shall wed you. The banquet hall instantly fell silent. No one had anticipated this, not even Su Yuanheng or the chancellor's daughter. The daughter stood frozen in place, while Su Yuanheng quickly regained his composure. He stepped forward and knelt. Father, I already have someone in mind. The chancellor's daughter quickly regained her composure and knelt beside Su Yuanheng. She never imagined this marriage would fall upon her. The emperor's eyes darted toward me. Could it be that the lady you've set your heart on is none other than Jiang Yutang of the Jiang household? All eyes in the room instantly turned to me once more. Su Yuanheng glanced at me. It is not her. With that, he walked over to the crowd and pulled Lu Hao out. Lu Hao and I grew up together. We have long pledged our lives to each other. We humbly request your majesty's blessing. The faces of those present instantly lit up with the look of spectators anticipating a show. Everyone assumed I would surely be unable to sit still. But from start to finish, I remained seated at the banquet, my expression unchanging. This time, Su Yuanheng had at least earned merit, and his request was reasonable. His marriage to Lu Hao was thus settled. The chancellor's daughter was betrothed to the third prince. The empress then arranged marriages for several other young nobles and ladies. When it came to me, the room fell instantly silent. All the princes and nobles kept their distance, fearing the empress might arrange a marriage between them and me. Mockery erupted. Just then, Su Yuanheng, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. In that case, why not betroth Miss Jiang to me as a secondary consort? His words were cut short before he could finish. I refuse. Zhou Ili appeared abruptly, still clad in armor he hadn't had time to change. All eyes turned toward the voice. Upon recognizing the figure, my eyes widened in shock. How could Zhou Ili be here? Moreover, he wasn't clad in common soldier's attire, his uniform suggested at least the rank of general. Could it truly be as I suspected? He wasn't an ordinary soldier, but a commander leading an entire region. Zhou Ili clasped his fists in salute. I encountered matters along the way and was delayed. Please rise. Zhou Ili stood but did not sit. I refused the fourth prince's proposal. Su Yuanheng's expression darkened. But Zhou Ili paid him no mind, continuing unabashedly. Jiang Yutang can only be my primary wife. The room erupted in commotion. Su Yuanheng seethed. Young general, do you realize what you're saying? I do. But I must also tell everyone present, Jiang Yutang is not without suitors. She is waiting for me. Before I left for battle, we made a promise that I would come to marry her upon my safe return. The others exchanged bewildered glances. The empress glanced at me and inquired. In that case, what are Miss Jiang's thoughts on the matter? Yes, I did indeed promise him that I would marry him upon his return. When I made this decision and spoke these words, my mind was not the slightest bit confused. On the contrary, I was exceptionally clear-headed. Under these circumstances, agreeing to him was the most advantageous course for me. And so, our marriage was settled. Even after the banquet ended, I still hadn't managed to exchange a single word with him. It wasn't until later, as we were leaving, that I finally found an opportunity. I pushed through the crowd and ran to his side. His attire, I must admit, was quite dashing. Hey, explain yourself. Explain what? Explain why you suddenly went from an ordinary soldier to a major general? He suddenly felt a bit uneasy and rubbed his nose. I lied to you, but I didn't lie about why I was injured. Zhou Yili said. Su Yuanheng's voice suddenly rang out. No wonder I wondered why you suddenly called off the engagement. Turns out you hooked up with someone else. Turning around, he saw that face he detested. Was it just his imagination? He seemed unusually angry. Why? Probably because he hadn't secured my family's backing. Otherwise, he couldn't fathom why Su Yuanheng was upset. Exactly. I broke off the engagement because I saw through you. The Major General is far better than you. After that, I ignored him completely, pulling Zhou Yili away. The marriage of the Chancellor's daughter had been set, with the wedding date soon to be chosen. As for Su Yuanheng and Lu Hao's union, it would follow shortly thereafter. Zhou Yili's betrothal gifts had already been delivered to our residence. Lately, the entire household was preparing for my wedding. I met with him privately several times. Each time, he asked if I was willing. If I wasn't, I could change my mind and call off the engagement. Until finally, I grew weary of his questions. I planted a kiss on his cheek. Stop asking. If I hadn't wanted this, I wouldn't have agreed that day. Zhou Yili's lashes fluttered, and he fled in disarray. The turning point came on Su Yuanheng's wedding day. I couldn't fathom what had happened. Su Yuanheng, who should have been preparing for the altar ceremony, suddenly appeared outside the mansion dressed in wedding robes. At first, I couldn't believe the news. But the moment I saw him, I froze in place. Because Su Yuanheng truly stood before me. Behind him, a crowd of onlookers had gathered, eager for a spectacle. Su Yuanheng's eyes were bloodshot, fixed intently on me. That look was unlike anything I'd ever seen in him before. It was as if he'd found something he'd lost and then regained. Before anyone could react, he stepped forward and pulled me into his arms. His grip was so tight it felt like he might break my bones. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. He kept repeating those words. I could faintly hear the tremor in his voice. Confused, I struggled to break free from his embrace. But his grip was too strong, I simply couldn't push him away. Just then, Lu Hao appeared, dressed in wedding attire, her face ashen. Her hair was slightly disheveled. Seeing our embrace, she stormed forward, furious, trying to pull us apart. But her strength was too weak. As the crowd of onlookers grew larger, I felt so embarrassed I couldn't even lift my head. I shouted, Su Yuanheng, let go of me. Zhou Yili suddenly appeared, stepping forward and pulling Su Yuanheng away with one hand. Then he kicked him out of the courtyard with a single blow. He stood protectively in front of me. Su Yuanheng, what the hell are you doing? Though I couldn't see his expression, his voice betrayed his anger. Su Yuanheng scrambled to his feet. What business is it of yours? Jiang Yutang is now my betrothed, with betrothal gifts exchanged. Legally and rightfully so. What business is it of yours? Su Yuanheng's face darkened instantly. Impossible. How could she be your fiancée? She should be my wife. Zhou Yili sneered coldly. You haven't lost your memory, have you? The marriage contract between Jiang Yutang and me was decreed by the empress herself. If you don't believe me, go ask her. Lu Hao rushed forward and grabbed Su Yuanheng's arm. Yuanheng, stop this. Everyone's watching. Let's go. Hurry back and get married. But as soon as she finished speaking, he seized her arm. Tell me, he's lying, right? I'm the one who's engaged to her. Lu Hao was visibly startled by his frenzied demeanor. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. What he said is true. I was initially bewildered, but after all this, I began to piece together what had happened. Su Yuanheng had also reincarnated. Hiding behind Zhou Yili, I locked eyes with Su Yuanheng. He tried to step forward, but Zhou Yili blocked him. Jiang Yutang, come out. Please come out. I need to talk to you. If this continued, no one would look good. I patted Zhou Yili's shoulder, signaling him not to worry. I'll just say one thing to him. It'll be fine. Zhou Yili hesitated, then stepped aside. Su Yuanheng approached, yet kept some distance. Zhou Yili and the others moved further away. I lowered my voice and whispered. Su Yuanheng, I know you have memories from your past life. Su Yuanheng's eyes widened instantly, staring at me in disbelief. Getting another chance, I refused to repeat past mistakes. That's why I broke off my engagement. Now Zhou Yili and I are betrothed, while you're engaged to Lu Hao. I know you like her, so this arrangement suits us both. Though I didn't know why Su Yuanheng had also been reborn. But in this life, even with his past memories, without my family's backing, he'd likely struggle to ascend the throne. Su Yuanheng remained in shock. So you should leave quickly. This commotion benefits none of us, and the empress will likely hear news soon. As I spoke, I shot Zhou Yili a meaningful glance. He promptly pushed Su Yuanheng out the gate and slammed it shut behind him. He didn't seem pleased. Why would Su Yuanheng suddenly show up here out of nowhere? No idea. Maybe he really did lose his memory like you said. I chuckled, offering a casual, dismissive reply. I should have married you sooner, so he wouldn't even dare to think about it. Zhou Yili's words instantly made me laugh. The gloom that had been weighing on my heart vanished completely. Later, I heard that Su Yuanheng and Lu Hao's marriage had ultimately not been consummated. However, it wasn't officially called off either, it was merely put on hold for the time being. Meanwhile, my own wedding to Zhou Yili drew ever closer. The house was hung with crimson silk. Yet on this joyous occasion, tribes from the border invaded, forcing Zhou Yili to lead his troops into battle. I stood at the city gate, among many other citizens. We had all come to bid farewell to the departing soldiers. Grief clouded every face. For all knew this might be their final farewell. Zhou Yili radiated a grim, battle-hardened aura, yet his gaze upon me held extraordinary tenderness. "I'll marry you when I return," he said. Yes, I nodded, my eyes brimming with reluctance. Suddenly, Zhou Yili stepped forward and embraced me. Only after a long while did he reluctantly let go. Then he led his soldiers out to battle. When most of the surrounding citizens had dispersed, I turned to leave. But my body froze. For I saw Su Yuanheng standing not far below the city wall. His gaze was complex as he watched me. I ignored him and walked past. After Zhou Yili's departure, Su Yuanheng grew increasingly adept at navigating the imperial court. Armed with memories from his previous life, he handled many matters with exceptional skill. The emperor grew ever more satisfied with him. Yet, lacking the backing of a powerful family, his sudden prominence inevitably drew the jealousy and hostility of the other princes. The third prince, the empress's biological son, had the entire imperial consort's clan backing him. Now, having married the chancellor's daughter, his position grew ever more secure. The two engaged in covert struggles within the court, but Su Yuanheng held the upper hand. Yet at this very moment, Su Yuanheng and Lu Hao's betrothal was annulled. Then came news from the frontier. Zhou Yili had met with disaster. He had unwittingly fallen into an enemy ambush and now hung by a thread. When this news reached my ears, I felt as if lightning had struck me. I froze in place, unable to move for a long time. No, I must go find him. Ignoring others' objections, I rushed out the back door, intending to find a carriage bound for the border. But the moment I opened the door, I found Su Yuanheng standing right outside. "Where do you think you're going? What business is it of yours where I go?" Su Yuanheng sneered coldly. "You want to go find Zhou Yili, Jiang Yutang? You must be out of your mind. Do you even know how far this is from the border? By the time you get there, his body will likely already be cold." The moment he finished speaking, my palm struck out. The hand that slapped him was still trembling from the sheer force I'd used, snapping his face sideways. A bright red handprint quickly bloomed on his right cheek. He touched his face in disbelief. "You hit me for him?" I glared at him fiercely. "Watch your mouth, or I might hit you again." Su Yuanheng stared at me intently, then suddenly threw back his head and laughed. "Very well. Since that's the case, I'll tell you the truth. Originally, the court intended to send someone else on this campaign. It was my suggestion to have Zhou Yili lead the troops, and the court accepted my proposal. So that's it. I always wondered why the court didn't choose one of the other generals with more battlefield experience instead of Zhou Yili. And with our wedding approaching, why would they specifically send him? It was all Su Yuanheng's suggestion. I shoved him away, ready to leave. But he grabbed my wrist. You want to go find him? Let me ask you this, even if you reach the border, what could you possibly do? Are you skilled in medicine or martial arts? I spun around, grabbed his collar, and yanked him down forcefully. Glaring at him, I declared, if anything happens to him, I will never forgive you, Su Yuanheng. You've fallen for him? Yes, you're right. I have fallen for him. Su Yuanheng's eyes went blank. Why would you like him? You swore you only liked me. Hearing this felt like the biggest joke ever. Su Yuanheng, how dare you say that? In my past life, you personally handed me the poisoned wine before I died. While I was suffering and dying from that poison, what were you doing? You were holding Lu Hao's hand, escorting her to the throne as empress. I could never forget that moment, as the poisoned wine seared through me again. Lu Hao was holding her coronation ceremony. Su Yuanheng shook his head, his composure breaking. No, I didn't poison your wine. I only laced it with a drug that induces unconsciousness. It was Lu Hao. She secretly swapped the cup without my knowledge. Su Yuanheng, I won't believe a word you say now. I pushed him away, intending to leave, but was stopped by the servants who had been driven out. The frontier was simply too distant. No matter what I said, they would never let me go. I was confined within the mansion, anxiously awaiting news of Zhou Yili. Finally, after half a month, word arrived from the frontier. Our forces had achieved a great victory, he would return soon. On the day Zhou Yili marched back in triumph, I joined the other citizens waiting at the city gates. I yearned to see him, to confirm he was safe and sound. Zhou Yili's figure drew nearer, the surrounding cheers growing louder. When he finally came to a halt before me, my eyes welled up uncontrollably. I couldn't hold back, I threw myself into his arms. You're safe. Do you know how terrified I was when I heard you were injured? I know. It's all my fault. I made you worry. As Zhou Yili and I entered the city, I thought I glimpsed Su Yuanheng's figure atop the high city walls. But when I looked closer, he was gone. Perhaps I'd mistaken him for someone else. Zhou Yili's victorious campaign earned him the title of Grand General, even granting him a general's mansion. With Zhou Yili's return, the delayed wedding proceedings could finally resume. Yet before the wedding could take place, Su Yuanheng, who had been absent all this time, reappeared. He was in the alley behind the mansion. When the servant first told me, I had no desire to see him. But the servant insisted he wouldn't leave until I met him. I had no choice but to go. The moment we met, Su Yuanheng seized my wrist, his tone urgent. Come with me. Let's leave this place, leave the capital, and go somewhere where no one knows us. Start anew. Su Yuanheng, I've made myself perfectly clear. The one you love isn't me. Why must you cling to me like this? I simply couldn't understand. The one I love is you. In my past life, I didn't understand. I thought I loved Lu Hao. But it wasn't until I saw you die from poisoning that I realized I had always loved you. All the pain I caused you before was my fault. I was wrong. But give me a chance. Let's start over, okay? I shook my head and pulled his hand away. No. My love for you vanished completely in the agony that poisoned wine brought me. No, it vanished when you issued the decree to confiscate my family's property and exile us. All that remains for me now is hatred. Su Yuanheng was utterly flustered. No, no. That poisoned wine wasn't mine. I truly didn't want you dead. It was Lu Hao, she poisoned it. Gone was his usual indifference toward me. So what? Su Yuanheng, seeing you like this now is truly laughable. When I loved you, you didn't care about me. Now that I no longer love you, you've changed your mind. This so-called love of yours makes me sick. With that, I walked straight out. On the wedding day. Red silk carpets stretched from the general's residence all the way to the entrance. Veiled in my red bridal hood, I took Zhou Yili's hand and stepped into the general's residence together. We paid homage to heaven and earth, then to our parents, and finally exchanged bows as husband and wife. Standing beside Zhou Yili, I could feel his nervousness and joy. He quietly slipped his hand out from beneath his robes. Then we were escorted into the bridal chamber. Only after the banquet ended did Zhou Ili lift my red veil. On the day I married Su Yuanheng in my past life, he hadn't even entered the chamber. I'd lifted the veil myself. Thus, like mandarin ducks playing in the water, we spent a night of passionate embrace. After his wedding, Zhou Ili remained at the mansion for several days, neglecting court duties. But during this time, a major incident unfolded. Su Yuanheng rebelled. At some point, he had bribed soldiers who marched on the palace, but the third prince ultimately led his men to subdue him. Su Yuanheng and every soldier involved in the rebellion met their end by decapitation. Liu Hao, implicated in the affair, was exiled 1,000 li. When I heard this news, I found it utterly unbelievable. Why would Su Yuanheng suddenly rebel? So that day when Su Yuanheng came to me, urging me to flee with him, that was precisely when he'd already resolved to rebel. Likely his influence had grown too formidable for the third prince to tolerate. Yet this lifetime, he lacked loyal followers behind him, forcing him into rebellion. How bitterly ironic that this was his fate. My mood shifted inexplicably, becoming strangely exhilarated. My connection with Su Yuanheng was utterly severed. Side story, as the fourth prince of the current court, I should have enjoyed supreme honor and privilege. But who could blame me for lacking any backing? Raised in the palace since childhood, the other princes disliked and bullied me. Even the servants looked down on me. Until one day, when I was bullied again, a girl appeared and saved me. Her name was Liu Hao. From then on, she often came to play with me. As we spent time together, I fell for her. But unexpectedly, her father was suddenly demoted to Suzhou, and she had to leave with him. Once again, I was alone. Before she left, she gave me a gift, saying we would meet again someday. Later, another girl appeared in my life. Her eyes always followed me. I knew who she was, the daughter of a high-ranking official in the current court. She declared her affection for me, though I felt none for her. Yet I refused to settle for an ordinary life, content merely as an idle prince. So I exploited her and her influential family, using her to secure my ascent to the throne. Immediately after my coronation, I ordered her family's estate confiscated and her relatives exiled. I couldn't keep a family that clearly posed a threat to me, though I couldn't bring myself to harm her. So I gave her only a cup of wine laced with a sleeping potion. But I never imagined Liu Hao would naturally swap that cup for one laced with real poison. When news of her sudden death reached me, I abandoned Liu Hao and rushed to the prison. There she lay, covered in blood, and my heart suddenly ached. The pain was so intense I couldn't breathe, couldn't catch my breath. I stepped forward to embrace her, only to feel the coldness of her lifeless body. Only then did I realize I had long since fallen in love with her. After discovering the poisoned wine had been switched, I also gave Liu Hao a cup of poison, a far more agonizing poison. Watching Liu Hao suffer and die before my eyes, I found no joy in it. Later, Zhou Ili burst into the cell, raised his sword, and slit my throat. I died. Before my last breath, I saw the hatred burning in his eyes. Yet I lived again, reborn, to be precise. I thought I might have a chance to make amends. Little did I know Jiang Yutong also carried memories from our past life. I watched him fall in love with that young general, Zhou Ili. So I devised a scheme, sending Zhou Ili off to lead troops into battle, a campaign from which he was unlikely to return. During his absence, I tried every possible means to win her back. But nothing worked. How could I bear to watch them together? Compounded by the third prince's increasingly hostile maneuvers against me in court, I was forced to rebel. Once I reclaimed the throne, I would have her, whether she wanted it or not. She would become my wife. Yet in the end, I failed. Only then did I realize how crucial her support had been to my success in my previous life. I loved her deeply, but I understood it far too late. The end.